Welcome to the You're Doing It Wrong podcast. I'm your host, Christian. I've got Rohan back again for another session with me today. How's it going, Rohan?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you, sir? How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's good to have you back. You've been doing some coaching, I believe, since we last spoke, and how's that going?
Yeah, good. I'm enjoying it. Two channels of coaching. One is the coaching for my own business, and that's going well. I'm enjoying working with people in the workforce, in manager or leadership roles, but are looking to step up into more senior roles, consulting roles. That's really rewarding. Also, working with a volunteer organization in Australia called Project Placed, helping unemployed job seekers, and that's really rewarding too. To help them to find work, give them the stability that they're looking for and they deserve.
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot more difficult for whatever you say, people over 40 to find work. And especially, I think, as you get older, over 50, if you find yourself out of work, it's probably really daunting to try and find a new position.
I would say so, but to a degree. But I notice in our world, there's a lot of grey-haired people, right? When you get into the sort of contracting and consulting world that we're in, it's very normal and very normalized to see people in their 50s and 60s. It doesn't stand out. It's not unusual. So I think that philosophy really seems to only apply to employees, people that are in fixed term or permanent positions. And that's why I feel like what I do is to help those people when they hit their 40s to move into that sort of consulting space, because that buys them longevity, which they probably won't necessarily experience if they stay in permanent roles. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a different beast, consulting, right? And so stability is not necessarily going to be the same as an employee position.
Sure.
But yes, I think you're right. There's more opportunities, hopefully, to be able to spread your knowledge, and more options around work come out. Whereas, I think if you try to find a long-term employment, as you get older, you're going to have to compromise on something, or maybe quite a bit, actually. So,
Yep. Agree.
I think it's a good option for those that can move to the uncertainty of consulting.
Yeah, and I think the uncertainty can also be mitigated to quite a degree when you're crystal clear in your value proposition, like who you are and who you're there to serve. If it's very clear what role you fill or hold and what value you bring, and collect testimonials, collect lots of testimonials and LinkedIn recommendations, by the way. And so people get you build a reputation as doing one thing very well, one or two things very well, and then essentially that sort of snowballs, and then you're sustaining a career, hopefully through your 50s, 60s, and onwards if you want to. That's the plan anyway, and that's what I like to help people to do, because there certainly is a shelf life if you're an employee, and I think there's greater risk in remaining an employee than there is in moving into contracting consulting with that, as you said, that risk of not always having a role. There'll be downtime, but you get paid a lot better than you would as an employee, and there's a longer shelf life. So I think it does balance out.
I've been listening to a few other podcasts and talk, and one I came across was by David Heinemann Hansen, or he was a guest on one. And if you don't know him, he was one of the founders of 37 Signals, which have the Basecamp software. he gives some great talks and has for quite a while and has written several books. But one of the things that struck me and I might put as a link somewhere in the description of the video, the link to that podcast, but it was like a 6-hour long podcast, and I didn't watch it all. I think I watched about half an hour, but skipped around, and they have good chapters. So, but what struck me in some of the discussion was around when they started discussing technology leaders, and one of them obviously was Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Elon Musk, being quite controversial, but has attracted a lot of talent. And I think the question was, is Elon Musk just great at finding talent, right, and seeking out and knowing talent? And DHH for short, David Heinemann Hansen, has basically said he thinks that it's that dynamic leadership that attracts attracts talent, right? So people are going to him. He set a very difficult, challenging goal of we're going to Mars, and people go, yeah, let's do that. I want to be a part of that. So you get top talent coming to him, right, and coming to Starlink, SpaceX, and his other companies, but then also having the discernment, to know who's real and who's not is definitely, you've got to have that as well. But we talked a bit about leaders before, right? And that sort of lack of leadership that we're seeing all over in a lot of companies, and in government and others, where, and leaders need to challenge, right? They got to challenge the people underneath, but not prescribe the means to get there. So they can say, I want an outcome. I want to get to Mars, but let the talent figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
They got to lead with vision, and don't stifle the talent. That bringing in vision, brings in talent, gets people on the same page, gets them excited. Then let them do what they're good at. And I, for better or worse, I don't see that, outside of some of these rare occasions, you don't really see that a lot. Or I've seen it before, but it's been a while, I guess you could say. But what are your thoughts on dynamic leadership like that?
Well, to me, it just sounds like leadership, and the fact that there are a lot of people walking around in leadership roles that don't have leadership traits. I think a lot of them are in that position through no fault of their own. They don't know any better, and they probably have no reference point for what good leadership looks like. So it's sort of the blind leading the blind across many organizations. I think a lot of people are put into leadership positions because they're SMEs. They're good at they're subject matter experts. They're good at what they do, and so by extension, the powers that be go, oh, that person is ready now, or has the experience to be a leader or someone in a leadership position. But really, they've been given no training. They have no insights as to how to actually lead people. I think you're right. The Elon Musks of the world do have a built-in advantage. Naturally, people are going to move towards them. They are going to attract people. So we don't have, that same advantage. There aren't going to be many leaders like him that have that built-in advantage, because we're not, flying to Mars. But
well,
no, go on.
No, and that's a good point, and I don't. look, there's all sorts of things that go on with, people like Elon Musk, where, they're in sort of the circle where they can make things happen. But I think you bring that down to, the smaller, just smaller scale.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
And you can still take that same vision and saying, I have a vision for what we can accomplish.
Exactly.
And let's make a hard goal. Let's not make something that's easily achievable. Let's do something that's going to stretch us.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to really stretch the team and because otherwise, you're just a low level manager. I think at that point, right? You've got to give some vision that you want to strive for something better than normal.
Agree, and that's what I was going to say. Is there's always a leader should always provide a vision. I think the challenge is that in many organizations today, there's not the room or the patience for leaders with vision. I mean, I've worked in organizations where it's not even clear what the business goal is. There's certainly no business plan. So, how do you develop a vision that aligns with the business goal when there isn't one? So that it can be challenging for even good leaders to provide for a vision, and that's probably the key point I'd make there. I think there's also everyone wants to seem to play it small these days. There's leaders don't seem to want to. Maybe it's an Australian culture thing. I'm not sure. Maybe people in the comments can say what it's like elsewhere in the world. But in Australia, people like to tend to play it small. Maybe it's for cultural reasons. And if you find a leader who has a vision, you're almost suspicious of them. Are they all right in the head? Sort of type thinking. So I think that's probably working against a lot of leaders as well. I'd certainly like to see, more leaders who have been provided the training to be leaders and have that, as you said, that vision. Even if it's whatever business area we're talking about, they have a vision for their business area, for their people, because that's what will get people inspired and wanting to work with them, wanting to get up in the morning and go in and contribute. To me, it's just classic leadership stuff. One of my favorite stories of leadership is probably the Ernest Shackleton story, the explorer who went to who was aiming to the South Pole, if I've got my history right, with a group of about 11 or so fellow expeditioners, but got caught in the ice and had to abandon their ship and make their way out of that seemingly impossible situation. Shackleton was able to get all of his men back to safety. They had to sail across an open Southern Ocean for many days in very icy, freezing cold conditions, but he managed to get all his men back to safety. It's a great story, all true. But to me, that just goes to show the power of true leadership, where you put your people first. You're not putting yourself first. You have a vision, which is to get back to safety. But originally the vision was to get to the South Pole, but then it was to actually, no, let's get out of this place and let's get back in one piece. So he provided to me the template for what great leadership looks like. I admire people like, politics aside, I admire the Bezoses and the Musks of the world, because they do exhibit classical leadership traits that I think are missing from many areas of our society, not just in business, but in our communities. So I admire that. I think that should be encouraged and talked about as we're doing now.
Yeah. And it takes a good leader. I mean, you're not going to change the world. You're not going to create AI. You're not going to make a drastic difference. If you're not leading with big vision, it's got to be a big vision that you're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, your impact, if you ever achieve anything, your impact's going to be negligible. So, leaders have to say, if they're focused on climate change or whatever it is. Not going to go into the politics of those subjects, but if you are looking at wanting to do something, and you've got to think big, and you've got to challenge people around you. If you're going to bring people on the journey, you got to challenge them. Not something, oh yeah, we can do that easily.
Yeah, definitely.
It's okay. Well, what's not easy? What's going to be hard to solve?
Definitely.
Because that's when you get the people interested, people like myself interested, where you go, okay, there's a challenging problem. I want to work on that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, I don't want to just go in and there's a lot of people that won't just take a normal position. And as we talked about, especially, people, so over 40 that may have tons of experience and not going to want to they want us to take something, have a new challenge in life that's going to be really hard to obtain. But yeah, who's going to set that vision?
I would encourage everyone in a leadership role or who aspires to a leadership role to study the classical leaders, the people like Shackleton, and many others through history who have proven themselves to be great leaders. I think there is a lot to learn from those types of people and to apply what they were naturally just inherently good at. They just were natural leaders, and to apply it into their own working lives, or lives in general. I think the other thing is to accept that leadership takes practice. It's not something that you can do off straight away. It's something that you need to take time to develop and to get better at. It's like anything else. I think a lot of people tend to think, particularly people who come from a place of ego, and we all, to varying degrees, come from a place of ego. But if you've come from a strong place of ego, you might think to yourself, "Oh, no, I'm just a natural born leader. I've got it. I know I have." But actually, that's to me is the antithesis of what leadership is. Leadership is not about you. Leadership is about them. It's about the people that you're leading. It's not about you. So if your thoughts immediately go to me and I'm a leader and I'm a great person and I've got great leadership skills, you're already working in the wrong place. You should actually be thinking, what can I do for my people? What do they need from me? What problems do they have that I can help them to solve?
Yeah.
If they have a problem, if they have challenges with the work, how can I actually step in and help carry the load with them? That's why, and again, I think we said before in the last time we spoke, I'm not a fan of the term servant leadership, but it's that way of thinking. It's that way of serving others.
Yeah.
That's leadership. And it's not a weakness. That's a strength. That's a strength because that's what will bring people towards you and wanting to help support you. And okay, and if they're doing that, and you provide the vision, well, then you've got a powerful group of people around you and with you that can do great things.
Yeah. I think in Australia, you get the tall poppy syndrome, which
Yeah,
is a very real thing here.
I
Of
agree.
public trying to really just cut down anybody that stands out,
Yeah.
and maybe I don't know, maybe that stops people from trying to give big vision,
Mm.
or um, yeah, a reluctance for people to really step up and challenge. I don't know. I mean, but I think that's probably more so here in Australia than in other places.
Yeah, definitely. You and me are the same in that we're both blow-ins. We've come from elsewhere
Mm,
and migrated to Australia. So I don't hold those same cultural references in my head, or I don't feel imposed by that way of thinking, the tall poppy syndrome. I'm the type of person that just goes, whatever. I'm going to do it the way that I think is right and right by others.
yeah.
But you're right. I think for a lot of people in Australia who were born here and raised here, it is definitely something that unfortunately prevents them from being the leaders that they could otherwise be, and that's a real shame for them, a real shame for the people around them that could who they could otherwise serve and do great things with. And also, it's a great shame for businesses and and communities in Australia too. I think we're all, and maybe this is a worldwide problem too, but I don't have really much of a reference other than here in Australia at this point. There is definitely a lack of leadership across all kinds of different sectors of our society, and I think you're right. The tall poppy syndrome is one of them. I also think that the people that most deserving of leadership roles are not getting the opportunities for those roles because there's definitely we know there's that sort of mateship. If you go to the
Mm.
right school, you get the right opportunities, and then who do you hire to step into those board roles alongside you? It's your mates from the same schools and the same
Yeah.
universities. So the there's not a true meritocracy in that respect in Australia, but then that's human nature, and I'm sure it's the same across a lot of the world. Um, but it doesn't serve us well as a society, that's for sure. Uh, I would say, though, to people that didn't go to the right schools or the right universities, but do feel that they want to contribute to their communities and lead in one capacity or another, to not lose heart. There are ways of contributing and becoming leaders and providing leadership to to different sectors of society. Just have to be a little bit more creative
Mm.
about it and know that it won't necessarily come with a high price tag in terms of an income, at least not in the short term. But that's probably the upside of living in Australia, is there's still opportunities here. It's just not the traditional, get into a big corporate and work your way up and then get
Yeah.
get onto a few boards, and that might not be your route, but there are other routes that can also be fulfilling and lead to financially and karmic fulfillment,
Yeah.
and become, have the experience of being a leader that is contributing and recognized and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that's a good point where, you not everybody's going to be a CEO leader, right? And or, founder or whatever it is. A lot of people are just leading small teams. Um, and, you and I have talked privately around creating high performing teams.
Mm,
And I think, well, definitely I want to discuss that more with you here, but, I think that also starts with, a vision for the team and having, sometimes, do you need a leader for high performing teams to set vision and set goals? Do you need that type of person on that team? Because, if I think, possibly if you've got really top quality, people, but if nobody's giving them vision, is it really high performing team at that point?
Gosh, that's a good question. What do you think the answer is?
I
Or does it depend?
I think you need that. I think
Yeah,
all teams need someone to
yeah,
push them, even if
yeah,
their can makeup is really top quality personnel. If there's nobody pushing them, that's human nature, and unless you know those people are self starters or
yeah,
pushing the vision themselves,
yeah,
and you've got people on the team that can do that.
yeah,
But if not, they're not going to be high performing. They'll be the same as any others.
yeah. I agree. I think there needs to be someone or more than one on the team that have a vision. I think a vision is important. I think also important is whoever the leader is. I think it's important for whoever is in that leadership role to provide a vision and then get out of the way,
Hmm.
as I say. Again, that comes down to a sort of emotional maturity, I would call it. I think great leaders have an emotional maturity. It's not about you as the leader. It's about your people that you're working with and ostensibly leading, if you will. Uh, so get out once you've provided the vision. Get out of the way. Where I've seen it go wrong and where high performing teams cease to be operating as high performing teams is when the leader essentially is saying things like, "Oh, why are you doing it that way?" Or, "Oh, you shouldn't do it like that. You should do it like this." And I've seen that.
Yeah,
As soon
prescribing
as,
the
yeah,
the
exactly.
method, yeah, versus
Yeah,
allowing the team to
exactly.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, just let them do it the way that they want to do it. You know, if you've got the right team that has potential to be a high performing team, they're like, it's like putting together a band of great actors. They're already outstanding at what they do. They've been they've got years of experience, years of skill,
Hmm.
years of knowledge. They don't need you to be telling them how to do it. They just need to be provided the vision and then for you to get out of the way and for you to be there if they ever need your support. If they run into an obstacle, that's where you can step in and help. But otherwise, get out of the way. So that's what I would say is also important as a high performing team, a leader that gets out of the way. I mean, have you ever seen it? I've certainly seen it where a leader will say, "Oh, I don't know. I don't understand why such and such is doing it that way." To me, I just thought to myself, it doesn't matter how they're doing it. They're getting the job done and it's going to be successful. Who cares how they're doing it?
Yeah. Um,
You're losing sight of the bigger picture.
it exactly hit you the bigger picture, right? So I think this, I see it a lot in government initiatives is they want to do something, right? So they've set a green goal, let's say,
Mm,
but then they forget about the goal and look at the individual project. And you
right.
might keep pushing a project
Mm,
that you say is going to accomplish that goal, but
mm,
maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But then you get so focused on the project of getting it done, you forget that, you know, the goal is what you're trying to achieve. You're not
yeah.
to trying if that means starting and stopping and creating a new project because times have changed. And I think and I've touched on this a little bit before, is, lead time for a lot of these big investment projects, especially in government. 10 years sometimes to get them off the ground, and so business challenges and economics and everything changes during the time that's still floated, but people hold on to the one project versus holding on to the goal that they're trying to achieve.
Yes.
And and to me, I talk, and I'll get a little bit specific here, is I think in green energy, uh, I think the way forward is not in big green projects,
Mm,
it's in micro projects. It's
mm,
transforming every house and public building with, you know, with solar, with wind, like tiny wind turbines that are,
mm,
the rooftop style things that are not the big, massive things that you see, putting batteries in everywhere that you can, because that's already space that you have
mm,
used up, right?
mm, mm,
You don't have to go and develop new space for this. It's already there,
mm, mm, mm.
right? You just,
Yeah.
you're value adding.
Yeah.
Um, and that money spent there on all those little tiny micro, you know, uh, um, installations, we'll say,
Mm, mm.
is going to bring much more value and instant value
Mm.
compared to these massive infrastructure projects, um,
Yes.
that I believe. And again, this is, so your cost blowouts, you're not going to have cost blowouts, because you're already putting it on something that's established, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, investing in, these smaller new micro technologies, is going to be the way forward because they can be produced in an instant, installed in a day. Not, you know. So I think a mindset shift needs to happen there. But from a leadership perspective, it's it's leading with the goal,
Yep.
and again, being allowing the team to be agile and not holding still to a prescribed way of achieving that goal.
Agree. Agree. I think also, if we were making a list of what constitutes a high performing team, another point is that every person in that team naturally has to bring something to the party, skills and experience and so forth. But more importantly, the right attitude. I'm really fascinated, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently with this idea of emotional maturity. People have emotional maturity, and versus people who are emotionally immature.
Hmm.
And it's something that we all develop over time. I've certainly been emotionally immature when I was younger. Most people are. You don't, you know, enter adulthood um, necessarily emotionally mature. It takes time. But unless you, of course, have a personality disorder, you're more than likely to develop your emotional maturity as you go through life.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it's important for people who work in high performing teams, or for a team who work on teams with the potential to be high performing, that they are all relatively emotionally mature. So again, they're thinking about others, they're not thinking about themselves. And I've seen it happen where teams, it only takes one person to not have that emotional maturity or enough of it
Hmm.
to turn what could otherwise have been a high performing team into a low performing team.
Yeah.
So I think it's important as the leader. I think your role as leader is to ensure that the people you choose to be on your team have that, yes, skill, experience, but also emotional maturity to contribute to play their role, not to try and compete with the leader, or
Yeah.
but to play the role that they've been given, like it's a play,
Yeah.
and that's your role, and that's the role that you'll play, um, and that you are putting out more light, if you will, than you're trying to
Absorb.
bring to absorb
Yeah.
or bring
Yeah.
towards you. Like the spotlight needs to be on you. No, you're pushing the spotlight out onto others, and that's the emotional maturity piece. So I think that's also important to call out. If you have everyone that has that, you've got a leader that can provide a vision. You're agile and can move. Um, you're starting to see the makings of I think, a high performing team. And I think you're right with the agile, by the way, because things do change, priorities change.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think it's important to recognize that there may be we may need to pivot, and potentially even the vision can change. So that's interesting too. If the vision entirely changes, what do you do in that situation?
So one other thing that I wanted to mention, you talked about people on a team that absorb light,
Mhm.
and can really change the culture of a team.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that we're seeing now is process trying to take over from people having to build culture. And the one thing I'll say, so performance management, or having difficult conversations, or holding people to account, um, is something that we don't want to do anymore. So we create all these training videos, extra processes and work to, for procurement processes that make it just And it's all because we don't want to have to hold anybody accountable.
Mm,
Leadership doesn't want to have hard conversations.
mm, mm.
But that still doesn't change culture, and you don't
No,
create culture that way.
no.
The only way to build culture is to have leaders that are quick to jump in
Mm,
to and if they're seeing an issue and saying that's not how we do things here,
yeah,
that is not the culture we're going to have here, and nip those things in the bud.
totally.
Process doesn't dictate culture. Culture is still something that leaders have to dictate.
Yeah, agree. It made me think of Shackleton again on that boat trying to
Mm,
sail to safety in the Southern Ocean, with icebergs floating past. If someone was causing a problem on that boat, it risked everyone on that boat. I've no doubt that Shackleton would have been having a, a difficult conversation with him, a difficult conversation with him. It
yeah,
went something along the lines of, "If you keep carrying on like that, you're going overboard."
yeah, probably, yeah.
So I I I don't personally understand the reluctance from people in leadership positions to have difficult or challenging conversations. That's part of being a leader. I think it's all about, I suspect, because of the risk aversion that is so pernicious and prevalent across so many organizations today. This fear that, what happens if they suit up, or get Fair Work involved, or whatever it
Mhm,
happens to be. There's that fear, so let's not even go there. But it's your job. It's your job to call people out that are
yeah,
not playing by the rules. It's also important for the leaders, including it from the very top down, and even at the board level, everyone has to play by the same rules. You've got to walk the walk. If you're not walking the walk, people will find out and they'll know you're not playing. They're not playing by the rules. Why should I play by the rules if they're not playing
mm,
by the rules? So you've got to walk the walk, and I see that time and time again as well. Um, but if you are playing by the rules, you've got to call people out. It's 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 the only way to really maintain the culture that you're striving for. Um, and really the alternative is this sort of, what I see often as well, is a sort of lip service approach to culture. It's all the words being are right, and they sound good, but
there's
he'll
no action.
there's no action. You look under the surface, and it's all a facade. There's nothing, nothing of substance there underneath
Yeah,
it. That's very, I think, toxic. Actually, it's actually worse. To me, that's more toxic than just having a poor culture that everyone knows and is acknowledges, or
mm,
just lives with. This sort of propaganda approach of, oh, haven't we got a wonderful culture, but everyone knows that we don't. That to me is even more toxic. It's almost a gaslighting approach to culture.
yeah,
So it's to me it's an important topic. It's particularly an important topic to me because, I project manage and I change manage from a change management perspective, from a working with stakeholders in a program, or change, a transformation for the business or whatever it happens to be. Uh, it's very hard to deliver change when the culture is not um, optimized, uh,
yeah,
because people can easily, but what I would say, bad faith actors can, within that context, can easily say, "I'm not going to change, or I'm not going to play by the rules that you're asking me to change as this business changes." And if the culture is poor, then, and no leader's willing to have a challenging conversation with them, then those bad faith actors can succeed, and they won't
Yeah.
be called out on it. They won't be thrown out of the boat. Well, how can you change? How can you actively change a business when the business isn't even willing to change its culture?
Yeah. 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 No, I've hit that 100%. It's, you can highlight to the managers and leaders that this stuff is going on,
Mm,
but they have to take action. And
yes, exactly.
it's not you as a
No,
project manager or a change leader to
yep,
do that. It's up to the business
exactly.
executives to do that. And
Yep,
when they refuse to take action, yeah, you're not going to change the culture.
no,
Um,
no. And the mountain just got that much higher to climb
hmm,
to change the business, whatever that change is. So culture does come before strategy, and it is that important. Uh, and I don't like window dressing. I don't like culture initiatives that are all about window dressing. I don't like it. Never have. It's got to be real, and it's got to be something that contributes. I mean, ultimately, a culture in a business has got to contribute to the business's goal, right? There's got to be a connection between what the culture is and what the business is trying, the vision of the business, and what the business is trying to achieve. I think oftentimes HR people are tasked or bring it upon themselves to define and manage a business's culture, but a lot of HR people don't necessarily make that connection between the importance of culture serving business goal
hmm,
and business strategy. So they don't make a clear link for everyone in the business to to identify and to enlighten them as to why the way that they do things, how they do things, contributes to what is achieved and what needs to be achieved. HR people are not great at making that connection when they roll out culture initiatives or culture change initiatives.
uh, should it be the HR
No,
people
it
that are
shouldn't.
driving culture? It shouldn't.
It should be from the top.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that's what happens when HR people get involved. Oftentimes, not all HR people. I've seen some of them do it very well,
Yeah.
but a lot of the times they miss that connection between the culture change and the culture work they're doing and how it contributes to the business strategy and business goal.
Yeah.
I think of it in terms of I think culture development should be based on asking question like, well, what is the business good at doing to achieve its business goal? Right. Well, make that explicit in our culture. The second question, what is the business really poor at doing to deliver our business goal? Well, then make that explicit in our culture
Yeah.
as something we need to address. Those are the only two questions you ever need to ask to define your culture in my book. What do we do
Hmm.
well? Make it explicit. What do we not do well? Make that explicit and but turn it on its head and say that's what we need to do better. And then as a change manager or a project manager, and then a culture that is all geared towards serving the business goal and business strategy, and a business that's got a business strategy that's very clear and defined, and everyone understands why culture is the foundation for that strategy and that business goal. You work in a business like that, things become super easy because
Hmm.
everything
Yeah.
makes sense. And if anyone behaves in a way that you know people identify them as someone who should really be thrown off the boat, it's crystal clear that they should be thrown off the boat because they know that that's not what the culture should be, and the
Yeah.
importance of behaving in the right way to serve the culture and therefore serve the business's strategy and goal.
Yeah. Um, I recently found some software.
Mm,
I like going out on the internet and seeing what new software is available.
mm,
And you know that I've preached for a long time that you need project management software.
mm,
Excel is not a project management tool.
yeah.
It drives me totally nuts.
Mm,
And I've been looking, because again, I've said on this podcast several times around having the goal for your project, right?
mm,
It's understanding what you're trying to achieve, is a big thing. Projects just they get fixated on something and they forget about what they're trying to achieve.
Mm.
There's a software out there called Lane Time. It's an open source and with a commercial offering as well. But their big thing, and while task management, it's not going to stand up to the same sort of task management as Asana or Jira or one of the others. But what I do like is it has these boards where you talk about your goals and your strategy
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
your
nice.
strengths and weaknesses and SWOT analysis and all that sort of stuff, and all of that is tied to the project and
Yeah,
easily referable, and each task can be marked against the goal or
good.
marked against
Yeah, yeah,
these other
yeah,
um, artifacts around strategy
yeah.
and
Great, great.
blueprints around
Yeah,
why you're doing it. And I go,
yeah,
this, it's still maturing, the software, but I'm going, they have it right,
yeah. I
right?
agree.
They're putting the
Yeah,
goals front and center,
agree.
and then having the tasks work to that.
Yeah.
So, if someone's out there looking for, some way to kind of keep,
Mm.
goals at the forefront of their projects and the way and their business, have a look at Lane Time.
Yeah. I've never heard of it, but yeah, that makes perfect sense and something that I inherently do. You're going to hate me for saying it, but I do. All my project plans and registers are in where else? Excel. Um, and it works for me, but I take your point. I think it's if I was to build a software for project delivery and
Hmm.
that wasn't in Excel, then I would absolutely include what you just described in that software. So it's nice to hear that that's being thought of. The other thing that I make a big deal out of, in addition to the project goal, is the which, and there is an overlap, of course, is the, as you know, the project benefits and making those
Yeah.
really clear. I tend to call out project benefits on an ongoing basis with the team. So you sort of you capture what those benefits are. Really, you should be capturing those benefits before the project even kicks off, right? I mean, otherwise,
Hmm.
why is the project being
Yep.
kicked off? But then you track those. I track those benefits and with the team and call out when those benefits have been realized. But it's also good to track benefits because, from my experience, anyways, there I find there are planned benefits, benefits that you called out and expected, and then there are also the unplanned benefits, the ones that you didn't expect, but it's like, oh yeah, that was an additional thing that's everyone's benefiting
Hmm.
from that we didn't even think about at the time. So I like to track those and document those as well. But yeah, if there was a software that fit my methodology for project planning and project delivery, it sounds like maybe that's worth trying.
I think it's worth a try. I think
Yeah,
everyone should go in and have a look. Um, there's so much software available out there, that all have different strengths and weaknesses and stuff. But
yeah.
you know, and I think people just need to be open to giving some new things a
Mm,
shot.
mm, mm, mm.
And I think that has a very good blend of um, high level stuff
Mm.
with some task management, right? So,
Yeah,
you can get into
yeah,
things like Miro boards, which are great,
yeah,
sort of visualization tools. But, I've
yeah,
seen people try to do, like task management out of there. Like,
yeah.
it's not, it's not
Not
really great at that.
not the best thing for
It's
that. Yeah,
so, and again, an Excel file is not really shareable, and it's going to be controlled usually by one person, and so
yes.
this is where you want to distribute, and that is work, and that's a high performing team thing, I think, as
Mm,
well, is
mm.
enabling everybody on the team to uh, contribute to
Agree,
the artifacts, right?
agree.
And decentralizing that
Yeah,
workload, and putting it back on the team to say, you guys are responsible for your tasks,
yeah,
and you guys are also responsible for uh, raising
Yeah.
risks
Yeah.
and finding strengths and
Mm,
looking at
mm,
threats and
yeah.
being a part of that whole process, not just I've got this one task to do. It's like, no, you're part of the whole team and the whole program, and you're going to have some thoughts on that. So
Yeah.
take some ownership as well. And I think that's where those sort of tools help to enable the teams to do that.
Mm, mm. You make a good point also in terms of the ideas of the project manager as leader. Um, I think it's important for project managers as leaders to not get hung up on the what. I think the more that you do that kind of work, the more you realize it's about the how. The best project managers have a certain way of doing the how. Every project manager knows the what. What separates the great project managers from the average project managers is the how they
Mm,
do things. You know, when they bring the team together to review the issues and risks, for instance, and see where they're at with that, or the week ahead and what needs to be achieved, and are we hitting our time frames and all the rest of it. It's the how you go about doing that. You know, do you do it in a way that's confrontational, or do you do it in a way that is a safe space?
mm,
That's an example of how, right? The first example, the confrontational. Well, that's not going to result in a high performing team. It's going to result in people on the team becoming disengaged. No one wants to be confronted or feel that they're being feel, even if it's not a reality, feel like they're being personally attacked, as opposed to a project manager who has greater, well, emotional maturity, greater sense of empathy for others,
mm,
and is able to get the same result in terms of learning our people on track. Where do they need support? And
yeah.
it's done in an environment. They create, as a project manager and as a leader, they create an environment, a culture, if you will, that is a safe space, and everyone feels safe. No one feels threatened. Everyone feels that when you're in a safe space and not threatened, that's when you're going to do your best work. So I think it's important as leaders that we create that environment, that safe space, if you will, um, that is conducive to people doing their best work. So the how is
Yeah.
important as a project manager.
uh, and I think the how is going to be different for every person on the team too. So it
True.
can be, right?
Yeah, I
So
agree.
you have to know the people on the team, and some people may not be responsive to certain way of
Mm,
communication,
mm, mm.
and so you'll
True.
have to know how to work with each person.
Yeah,
Some people are
great.
going to be very sensitive about how are asking questions about or their tasks and are they
Exactly.
up to speed and so you need to know the team and start to work out and approach
Definitely.
it in a yeah
So soft
measured
way,
measured
measured way.
soft way at
Yeah,
first, until you
yeah,
get to know the team
yeah, yeah.
and what everybody's preferences are, because you will
Agree.
everybody's going to be different, and so I don't think
Yeah,
one sort of uh, you know management style or communication style across everybody's probably going to work. um,
yeah.
so
I tend to agree. Although what works for me is what I would call a soft style, soft approach.
hmm,
That you seems to work with 9 people out of 10. The 10th person that it doesn't work with, then I jump straight from a one soft to a 5 hard.
yeah. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly,
There's no in
exactly,
between
yeah,
for me. But I'm a very kind of soft approach type of person. For instance, this is just to give you an insight as like how I think. I would never set up a meeting with anyone on my team or anyone that we work as a stakeholder, anyone working with. Um, I would never. I'm very careful about what I would write in the subject line of the calendar invite. So
hmm,
I always use the term catch up, catch up.
yeah,
I would never say one on one or
yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's the details. It's the small things like that. That to me is the how. If you someone's if because I know because this is empathy for me, right? I empathize with people who receive an invite from me that says one on one, 1:1.
Mm.
I've had those invites from my managers in the past, and it's a to me it's a pure power play.
Mm.
It's drives me crazy, but there's no empathy there. It's essentially saying be
Yeah.
scared, and by the way, your one-on-one's tomorrow, so have a bad night's sleep. I'm not even going to tell you what this one-on-one is about in the invite body of the calendar. It's just, but it's a one-on-one, and it's happening tomorrow. And good luck having a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Now, I
No.
would never do that. In turn, I would write catch up. I always put the person's name before my name,
Yeah.
like John/Rohan, never Rohan/John, because they're more important than I am. Like everything's deliberate, everything's safe, everything's like you can have a good night's sleep. We're only catching up. I'm putting you first. I'm just giving you that as an example of the
Yeah.
importance of creating a safe space
No,
to get to
you,
get a high performing team happening.
yeah. No, and you're exactly right. Like I always put catch up as well. I would
Yeah,
never put one on one. And yeah, I
yeah,
would have the same reaction probably with the one on ones. And I have, yeah. And but I'm like, well, why do we have to why do we even have to say this? Should people just, you know,
yeah. True,
like
true.
this has been going on for quite a while and people still doing and making those mistakes. Like, do we have
Well, because a
like
lot of people are coming from a place of ego, sadly, and they're in leadership positions. And I don't think a lot of recruiters take emotional maturity into account. Frankly, I think it seems to be an afterthought. Oh, how come this person's not working out? Oh, I guess they're not emotionally mature. Oh, yeah, I guess we should have thought of that when we recruited them. So those kind of people, don't get me wrong, like we all, most of us mature as we go through life. As I said, unless you have a personality disorder. That's my, that's my. I'm not a psychologist, but that's my
uh,
personal philosophy. If you've got a personality disorder, then go to a therapist. That you can get help, but you need to want help. Anyway, moving on. But if as it we we all come from a place of emotional immaturity, and we over time become more mature. But you've got to be careful with the people you bring onto a team if you want it to be a high performing team, is what I'm saying. Or you want to bring on someone into a leadership role, then you've got to be very careful that you put someone in that role that is emotionally mature, I believe. I don't think enough recruiters think about that and the importance of that. And
mm,
you see the results. People who, you know, coming from a place of ego, coming from a place of emotional immaturity, the spotlight's on them. They're absorbing light, not emitting light, and people steer clear of them. They make people feel small, and all the rest of it. And then you watch your culture fall to pieces as a result. But what I do want to say this though: if you, if you are a leader, or more to the point, given our conversation, a project manager,
mm,
that's the opportunity to at least create a culture for your team that is positive and full of light and emotionally mature and empathetic. You can create that culture for your team. And even though the broader culture in that business may not be particularly good, it might even be
yeah,
toxic, you can still be a change maker. You can still be someone who provides for a great and positive, rewarding experience for those team members and for the stakeholders that you work with in the business. They will see that and they'll be drawn to you. So I think that's, we're coming full circle in terms of leaders who people are drawn to. I think it's that there is something to how those leaders treat others. Because I don't think by the way, in terms of those people you referenced at the start of this episode, we
mm,
don't hear the full story about who these people are and what they're really like. We just see it through the lens of media and subjective hit pieces. So who's to know what these people are really like as well? But anyway, I think the importance of creating a culture that's positive and full of light. That's something that what I love is about being a project manager is you can do that even if you're working in a business that has a culture that is even toxic.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll just mention, at the beginning, or it's going well. Those people have shown that those teams have
Mm,
performed because they've accomplished some major things,
yeah,
and I look at
yeah,
SpaceX as I think one of the most um, accomplished private
mm,
companies in the past 50 years, just
mm,
you know um,
yeah,
basically taking over the space, the whole space industry, you know from zero to 95% in a number of years, right? Like
yeah,
that's an amazing
yeah,
uh you know thing that they've done. And that's kind of, there's fruit, right, from there. is
exactly.
is every man is going to be fallible at some point, but
Mm,
is Elon Musk's vision and whoever else is running SpaceX, underneath him, are
mm,
their visions turning into reality? And I would say yes,
mm,
right? So, and that's the point, right?
yeah,
Of this, leadership, is that there should be some fruit from the leadership, that you're putting out there, right? You should be seeing that those goals are being accomplished, and if
mm,
they're not, what's wrong,
mm.
right?
What's wrong and how can we fix it together? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, nice one.
So, well, thanks, Rowan. It's been a great discussion again,
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
and all the luck in the future. And we'll talk very soon.
Thank you, Christian. It's good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us today. And if you have any questions for the guests, pop them into the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.